So somebody had the nerve one day after my 5-minute testimony, I'll go back to the text and I'll holler and leave y'all alone. I went to an amusement park years ago, Great Adventures. Y'all know nothing about that, Six Flags. And I went and I avoided roller coasters. I went on every ride except roller coasters.
Somewhere in a small church, decades ago, a group of older mothers surrounded a young man at the altar and told him to do one thing: tarry. Don't leave. Don't get comfortable. Don't quit when it gets uncomfortable. Just keep calling on the name of Jesus until something breaks. That young man was Todd Hall. Today, you know him as a prophet, a praiseologist, a man who has preached healing from a stroke that once left him partially paralyzed. But before any of that, he was just a kid at an altar, resistant, unsure, maybe even annoyed. And he had an encounter that never left him. And here is the twist. Years later, at Six Flags of all places, standing in line for a roller coaster he didn't even want to ride, a young boy would hand him one of the clearest pictures of spiritual growth he would ever preach. Patience, persistence, gratitude, all wrapped up in the wait for a 2-minute ride. If you have ever felt like your breakthrough was taking too long, or like you were doing everything right and still watching everyone else get their turn first, stay to the end. This one is for you. Let's start where the testimony starts. Picture a Sunday service, the kind a lot of us grew up in, the kind where the mothers of the church aren't just sitting quietly in their pews. They are watching. They are praying. And when they see a young person who needs an encounter with God, they don't wait for a formal invitation. They surround him. That is the scene Todd Hall describes from his own salvation story. He wasn't necessarily arriving at that altar fully surrendered. If you have spent any time in church, you know that's normal. Most people don't walk up to an altar call already convinced. They walk up resistant, distracted, maybe even going through the motions because someone nudged them forward. And that is exactly where he was. But the mothers around him weren't interested in his starting posture. They had one instruction: tarry. Keep calling on Jesus. Don't stop when it feels awkward. Don't stop when nothing seems to be happening yet. Keep going until something shifts. And something did shift. Hall describes it as a real, personal encounter with God, not a performance, not going through the motions to please the people around him, but a genuine moment where salvation became real to him. And here is the detail that matters most in how he tells it. That encounter left a mark that never faded. Whatever state of mind you walk into that moment with, skeptical, resistant, half-hearted, Hall's point is that a real encounter with God doesn't need you to have it all together first. It meets you where you are and marks you permanently anyway. That is worth sitting with for a second, because it pushes back against a belief a lot of people carry quietly, the idea that you have to get yourself right before God will actually show up for you. Hall's testimony says the opposite. The mothers didn't wait for him to arrive spiritually ready. They just kept him at the altar until readiness caught up with the moment. That is Act 1. A resistant young man, a church full of women who refused to let him give up too early, and an encounter that became the foundation for everything that came after, including, decades later, throat cancer, Bell's palsy, a stroke, and a ministry built on praising God through all of it. But that is a different story. Today, we are going to Six Flags. Here is where the sermon takes a turn nobody sees coming. Hall tells a story about visiting an amusement park, Six Flags, and standing in front of the roller coasters like a man facing an actual spiritual crisis. He is hesitant. Maybe it's the height, maybe it's the speed, maybe it's just that primal absolutely not feeling. A lot of us get staring up at a steel track that loops upside down. Whatever it was, he wasn't trying to get on that ride. And then, a kid shows up. A young boy, probably half his height, with all the confidence in the world. And this kid basically talks a grown man, a preacher, into getting in line. But it's not just that the boy convinces him, it's what the boy teaches him while they are standing in that line that turns into the real sermon. 3 lessons. Let's go through them one at a time, because each one is doing real theological work under the surface. The first thing the boy points out: the ride itself is short. Maybe 90 seconds, 2 minutes of actual roller coaster. But the wait is long. Sometimes it's 45 minutes, an hour, standing in a switchback line in the sun, inching forward a few feet at a time. And Hall takes that observation and turns it into a mirror for how we experience God's promises. Think about how often we picture the ride, the breakthrough, the blessing, the answered prayer as the main event, and treat the waiting as an inconvenience we just have to tolerate to get there. But what if the wait isn't wasted time? What if it's necessary? Anybody who has actually stood in a real theme park line knows this instinctively. The line isn't separate from the ride experience, it is part of it. It's where the anticipation builds. It's where you talk to the people around you. It's where you notice who is coming off the ride ahead of you, with their hair wrecked and their eyes wide, which is doing more work in this analogy than it looks like at first. The spiritual version of that patience is the hardest kind of faith to hold on to, because it's not passive, it's not just gritting your teeth and enduring. Hall's framing suggests something more active. The wait is where you are actually being prepared for what is coming. If you skip the line, you aren't ready for the ride. The second lesson the boy hands him is about the climb, specifically measuring up and taking the stairs to reach the top of the ride. Anyone who has been to an amusement park knows exactly what this means. Literally, there is a height requirement. You have to measure up to a certain mark before they will even let you through the gate. And then, once you are cleared, you don't get teleported to the top of the track. You climb, stair by stair, through what feels like an endless staircase, before you ever get to the part where the ride takes over and does the work for you. Hall's point lands here with real weight. Persistence isn't just enduring the wait. It is the ongoing decision to keep climbing, even after you've already qualified. You measured up, you were cleared, you were called, you were saved at that altar all those years ago. But qualifying isn't the same as arriving. There is still a staircase, there is still effort required between the promise and the manifestation of the promise. This is where the roller coaster analogy quietly connects back to that opening testimony. Remember, the mothers at the altar didn't let him stop the moment he showed the first sign of surrender. They kept him tarrying, kept him climbing spiritually, until the real encounter happened. Same principle, different scenery. Measuring up gets you in the gate. Persistence gets you up the stairs. And now, the lesson that is actually the sharpest turn in the whole message. Hall says the boy taught him this. Before you are ready for your own turn to ride, you have to learn to celebrate what God is doing in someone else's life first. Sit with that for a second, because it cuts directly against how most of us are actually wired. Standing in that line, watching other people board ahead of you, get their ride, and come down the exit ramp laughing, breathless, thrilled. The easy, human response is some version of, when is it going to be my turn? Impatience, wearing the costume of eagerness. Maybe even a flicker of envy if the wait has been long enough. But the boy's instruction flips that completely. Before your turn comes, learn to genuinely celebrate somebody else's. Watch that person come off the ride, and mean it when you're happy for them, not begrudgingly, not while secretly counting how much longer you have to wait, but actually rejoicing that they got their moment. Why would that matter spiritually? Because how you respond to somebody else's blessing while you're still waiting for yours tells you something true about your own heart's condition. If you can't celebrate someone else's harvest without resentment creeping in, that is usually a sign you aren't actually ready for your own yet. Because the blessing isn't just going to hand you the breakthrough, it's going to hand you a platform, and bitterness doesn't know what to do with a platform. Gratitude for someone else's turn is the training ground for your own. That is the piece of this message that deserves the most reflection, honestly. Patience and persistence get talked about in sermons all the time, but you have to learn to celebrate other people's blessings before you're ready for your own. That is a much harder, much less comfortable teaching, and it's the one most worth sitting with after this video ends. So, here is the whole picture, front to back. A young man at an altar, resistant, being held there by mothers who refused to let him leave before the real thing happened. An encounter that marked him permanently, regardless of the state he walked in with. And decades later, a completely unexpected teacher, a child, in a theme park line, handing him the same lesson in a different shape. The wait matters, the climb matters, and how you treat other people's turn matters just as much as how you will handle your own. Patience isn't wasted time. Persistence is what happens after you've already qualified. and gratitude for somebody else's ride is the proof that you're actually ready for yours. Whatever line you are standing in right now, literal or otherwise, that is the message underneath the message. It's not just about waiting well. It's about becoming, in the waiting, someone who is actually ready for what's coming. If this message hit you today, if you are in a season of waiting, or climbing, or trying to genuinely celebrate somebody else's blessing while you're still standing in line for your own, let me know in the comments where you are at. And if you want more breakdowns like this one, testimonies, sermon analogies, the real teaching underneath messages like Prophet Todd Hall's, follow along on our channels so you don't miss the next one. I'll see you in the next video.